Well, we've got a couple fewer people on the show today. Devon has a day off, and obviously the incomparable Seth Greenberg is not on today's show. Of course, thank him once again for that showing up yesterday. It was a great conversation. But you are left with only Kyle and I here once again today. And unlike a lot of our shows, I feel like where we're diving deep into some well talked about prospects and maybe repeating that a little bit because there's just a handful of people who are way more likely to be selected by the Sixers here with this third pick. Today, we're going to veer off, of course, a little bit here and catch you up on some of the latest rumors. So I think we'll probably start this off. I will throw it over to Kyle. I think he is probably the sloppiest of the three on this show. And I mean that in an endearing way. Hat tip to Trill on the name. But there's been a bunch of rumors out there, or at least a bunch of reports, some of them concerning the Sixers. Which one do you think probably comes top of your mind and is the most consequential for this team that we all know and love?
Well, so I think we got to start with the stuff that's out there about Dylan Harper right now. And so there are, let's say, a few directions we could go with this. Let's start with something that's more concrete because this is a verifiable source and story. Kristen Peak, who's now over at Hoops HQ, she's been covering not just the draft, but like high school recruiting, like all that, like is very plugged in on all the up and coming players, amateur prospects and whatnot. She wrote on, I want to say this was Monday, June 1st, maybe Sunday, Monday, one of the other, wrote about the potential for Dylan Harper to go to a team other than the Spurs. And so we've talked about that quite a bit at this point, mostly through the lens of the Bucks trade potentially for Giannis, if that comes on the table. But Harper told Kristen Peak, talked to her directly and said that he has already worked out for multiple teams. Right.
Of note, he did this almost exactly 24 hours after we said there is no reason for Dylan Harper to work out anyone outside of the Spurs. Go on.
Yeah. So direct quote from Harper, pre-draft process for me has been going great. I've had a few workouts, just getting my body in shape, making sure I'm sharper for the next level because everyone is so good, trying to get in the right mindset and right conditioning. So I'm ready. So that's where you would start, right? I think we have talked about Harper and pretty directly said we were expecting him to just, if you work out for anybody, it's the Spurs and that's it. I think this is interesting just in the sense of whether it's Harper himself, his representation, perhaps even his dad, like somebody in his orbit is telling him like, hey, there's a good chance that either the Spurs don't take you or the Spurs are going to move that pick and somebody else is going to be in a position to take you, in which case like they want to get as much intel as possible. So I would say there are a few initial thoughts from me. One, I think it speaks highly of Harper that he's like, yeah, sure, I'll go work out for these teams. I'm not afraid of what they might find or what they might see in a workout where there are some guys who just shut it down and say, I'm the consensus 2 guy. Like I'm going here. It doesn't really matter. Anybody will take me. So I like that from a character perspective. But I also just think it dovetails with the overarching questions once the Spurs landed here at 2, right? Like they are, of the teams that could have landed here, they're of the least need for Dylan Harper relative to a lot of these teams. Like they just traded for De'Aaron Fox. And Derek, we can discuss, the Fox, Harper. What would you do? What's a priority there? They drafted Steph Castle last year, and while he's more of a combo guard, he is a guy that's going to need the ball in his hands, and it's not a clean fit with a ball-dominant player.
Just won Rookie of the Year. Now, granted, it's Rookie of the Year in a 2024 class. There's an asterisk along with that. It feels a little bit like the Malcolm Brogdon win. Not that it's the same because obviously Joel injury, but yada yada. Point is, it wasn't a strong rookie class. Still, he won Rookie of the Year and he played good basketball.
Yeah, was expected to be a good role player, I think, like high-end starter potentially, but had a very good season. So we'll see what happens with him. And then Harper, right? And so a lot of people, even though Harper is on most people's boards, the clear number 2, have just said, is the rubber going to meet the road here, right? Like, is somebody getting traded? Is the pick getting moved? And frankly, is this going to be a Giannis package? But we're just seeing and hearing more and more now that suggests it might not be that Harper is going to fall, but this is not just as simple as San Antonio is walking up to the podium, picking Dylan Harper, and it's over. And so that opens up, whether it's conversations about the Sixers maybe trying to trade up, whether it's Harper falling to 3, there is a much better chance than I would have said a month ago that Harper could be in play, is what I would say.
Yeah, and if you go back to our reaction on lottery night, like this was a that's interesting, almost right from the jump. And I think for the most part, the that's interesting has been phrased in a way of, well, maybe they could actually look to trade this pick. Not too far down, but maybe they're not as enamored with number 2 pick as other teams would be because they have such depth at guard, or maybe they just use it for a big swing because they do have Wemby, and that title contention window is quicker than most people with a player or a team that young. But there was always that, 95, 97, 98, whatever percent sure Harper will go number 2, but they are like the one team that would actually push that envelope. And, when you hear about Harper working out for other teams, I think a lot of people immediately go like, well, maybe he's hearing stuff about trade talks and they wanted to get a look at him. That's almost definitely not the case, because if you are the Spurs, you don't want, by virtue of who he's working out for, to leak your draft talk or your trade talks. Like, I don't think they are going to put that at risk. So you do wonder, is he getting some intel, even if it's just a 5% chance or a 10% chance? Maybe that, like I said, that 2% chance that we thought they could pass on him has increased to 10% chance. And because of that, they want to make sure that they do their due diligence. They show for the teams that could possibly select him. Even still, he's not dropping. Like, his floor is like 3. There is almost no way 2 teams pass on him with Cooper Flag off of the board. It is super interesting, and I don't know entirely what to make of it. It doesn't really, like I said, we were literally here 48 hours ago saying there's absolutely no reason for Dylan Harper to work out for other teams. I still don't really know the reason for Dylan Harper to work out for other teams, but I like it both because of the competitiveness aspect to it. I think it reminds me back to days when like prospects used to actually play games at the combine, and everyone would make a big deal of, oh, the number 1 pick's not going to play a game, or the number 3 pick's not going to play a game. And then it became, well, every lottery pick's not going to play in the game, because why would they? And it's like the ones that would just sit there and go like, well, but I like playing basketball. I'm not scared to show people how good I am at it. It was very, very refreshing. So I appreciate it just because it seems like Dylan Harper is not scared of the moment, which is great. But I also appreciate it because that, like I said, that small couple percent chance that Dylan Harper might slip past 2, it might be a slightly bigger couple of percent chance that Dylan Harper slips past 2. And that would be great. If you want to see the enthusiasm on this show pick up dramatically, watch Dylan Harper become a Sixer, and all of a sudden, all the people who think we're too negative, I think they're going to be very happy with the show. And now there will be some people, well, why are you making a big deal about Ace not being on a good team and Harper? The panel on this show, has never made a big deal about Rutgers being a bad team. We've mentioned it. We've talked about it. We've brought up some context around it and the decision that maybe went behind it. But that has never been the disqualifying aspect to Ace Bailey for us, and it wouldn't be for Harper as well.
Yeah. And look, if Dylan Harper, for whatever reason, is not taken at 2, I think the immediate place you go is not what their record was, not a lot of the stuff that happened there. It's very simple. Somebody doesn't believe in the pull-up shooting. They think that is a big enough concern or flaw right now that if you're drafting a kid who is going to be a ball dominant player, like you're drafting him with the idea he will be a hub of your offense. If you don't believe he's going to get there as a pull-up guy, whether it's from mid-range, whether it's from 3, to like obviously more importantly from 3, but he didn't show much as a pull-up jump shooter inside the arc either this year, then that's why you're just saying, I don't believe in the star upside, right? I might think he's a good player, but I'm not willing to stake the number 2 pick on him getting there in this way, right? Now, I tend to think, and from what I have heard from NBA teams and scouts and whatnot, I think most people still think that he's got a pretty high floor and, frankly, 100%. Relatively high ceiling, even if the pull-up shot doesn't come, right? Because the catch and shoot numbers are decent. The free throw numbers are decent. And as an inside the arc player, he was such a special finisher. He's got an NBA body, right? Like he's 6'6" and is built like a tank for a teenager. And so he's only going to get stronger. He's a guy that's going to be able to play through contact and frankly initiates contact. He reads pressure really well. And so his feel is high, right? And so for a guy with those tools to say, when you trap him, that's a bad decision for your defense because he's not going to turn it over and he's going to find some high value passes. That's really what you're looking for out of that type of player and that type of spot. So look, I certainly think the pull-up shooting is a big deal, right? And if you're trying to get inside the head of an evaluator who would say, I might be lower on him than others, that's where you go. But that's really the thing, right? Because everywhere else you say he does everything you need from a lead guard. And if you're looking at it from the Sixers perspective, because he does a little bit of everything and because he is a downhill, get to the rim, drive and kick, does all that stuff. Plus he's got great positional size, which gives him backward defensive versatility, can guard up and, over the long term, I think will probably be a pretty good defender, at least a versatile defender. That means he can fit with just about anybody, whether it's guys on the roster now or people you can draft later, right? We've talked about that with Cooper Flag. Flag is different in that he is like a true Swiss Army knife. But I think when you're talking about a 6'6" good athlete with Harper's frame, there's just not a lot of guys that you would put on the floor next to him and be like, oh, that guy just doesn't fit with him. He is a player that comes in and it's a team agnostic type of player.
Yep. No, I mean, we talk a lot about, those four guards at the top of the draft and their various levels of fit around your core. He is not only the best out of that group, but he fits really well too. And he's maybe not like VJ might be a little bit more of a seamless fit just because the defensive upside is higher. But Harper offensively, like I think it was You Better Love Somebody in the chat who brought it up. But like his ability to get Maxey and McCain shots off ball and his ability to put pressure on the rim and really play with a vertical threat like someone like Bona or a pick and pop threat like Embiid when he's on the floor. And then also spray the ball across the floor to get shots to shooters. You have Maxey and McCain running off ball. That can look really good and be very interesting, not only in present day, which I do think he is one of the few players in this draft who can step in and have an impact from day one, but also long term. Like I think that is very, very intriguing. So yeah, Harper, I do agree that the pull-up jumper is by far the biggest question mark, especially when you start talking about star equity. That is the one that really has to worry about. But that's also one of the skills, especially for a player who has otherwise strong skills across the board, shot well off of the catch. I think that is one that you have a reasonable chance of projecting. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but it's one of the ones that scares me a little bit less.
Yeah. And then, so to get a little deeper into this, there has been nothing concrete that's come out from San Antonio about, they don't want to take this kid or anything. So, and if you look at all the, not to over rely on betting markets, but like the betting markets still have Harper as like the by a mile favorite for number 2. Like last I checked, it was like minus 3,000 for him to go second, which if you're not a gambler, minus 3,000 is a huge favorite for him to be taken there. So the intel suggests that, after all the smoke and all the other stuff, the Spurs will just do the basic thing. I would just say that you have to try to get into the mind of all parties involved here, right? So imagine you're De'Aaron Fox and you're his representation. And De'Aaron Fox makes clear, I want to go to San Antonio specifically. I want to play for the Spurs. I want to play with Wemby, all that. The Spurs make a trade. Fox gets there, really doesn't play all that much, and Wemby is out, so it's not like they got to work on anything. And then the Spurs get this pick, and the first thing you hear is, well, they might be taking another guard who wants and needs the ball in his hands. And then imagine you're Steph Castle, and you did have the Rookie of the Year season, and you had earned your place as, you're a featured player for this team moving forward. And then imagine you're Dylan Harper, and you're Dylan Harper's agent. You're Dylan Harper's very well-known dad, very successful NBA player. And they see, hey, my son, my client, or myself, I'm very talented. You're very talented. You can probably help a team almost anywhere you go, right? do you really want to go to a team where you're going to have to split reps at guard with these other guys, especially a guy in Fox that is an established, like, all-star, maybe slightly below all-star tier player, like has been in those conversations for a while now? Is that the best place for you to go as a young player to develop? That doesn't mean that, the Sixers are, by the way, because of Maxey, because of McCain, because of whatever is going to happen with Grimes. But I do think those conversations are happening, and I do think that that's part of why this stuff just continues to persist, right? It's not just people pulling things from thin air. And in this case, with Harper and the workouts, he has verified this is happening, right? So for whatever reason that these workouts are taking place and he's looking elsewhere, they are happening. And so why that ends up being or where this ultimately settles, we can't say today on June 4th, but it is absolutely something to keep an eye on. And if you're the Sixers, you have to prepare for all possibilities, right? Spurs on draft night are sitting there. What's the trade they're going to make, or what kind of options are they looking at? And if somebody else moves up and even they say, hey, we're big ace people, we're big VJ people, it could be anyone, come on, Maluach, who we'll talk about a little later, then who are you taking at 3? Are you a Harper team? Do you really believe in him like that if somebody else doesn't? So I'm very intrigued by where we sit right now with this draft, because while I think ultimately it'll probably go chalk, we have seen a lot crazier things happen.
Yep. And there's a couple comments from Igavini in the chat I want to highlight. He says that if that is the case, the Fox, Fox concern, he couldn't imagine them looking at the Sixers as a spot then, because coming here, he would be 4th. I disagree pretty strongly on that. And I think a large part of that is because of how Maxey and McCain play and what their skill sets are. Like I mentioned earlier, you can put Harper on the ball because Maxey and McCain not only are good at it, but thrive as off-ball players. I think there is a less of a need, as established as Tyrese Maxey is. I think there's less of a need to share those ball handling responsibilities and take the ball out of Dylan Harper's hand. I think you can give him the ball a lot. And, second of all, he's not going to be 4th. Like, if you draft him 2nd overall, he's coming ahead of McCain and ahead of Grimes in the pecking order. That's just the virtue of being the 2nd pick overall. And also the fact that, the skills he showed to get to being the 2nd pick necessitates him getting the ball and being ahead of them in the rotation. And look, I think he should probably just go to the Spurs, see how he plays next to Fox. And if it doesn't work out, oh, well, you can still build a decade-long career with the alien and contend for titles. Like, I think if they are like, I don't want to go to San Antonio, I think they're making a pretty big mistake. But I also think fundamentally playing alongside Tyrese Maxey, who's really the only super established star, or at least star adjacent prospect, playing next to Tyrese Maxey is just a more seamless fit.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head for me, because I'm considering Maxey and how guys fit with him if I'm the Sixers. But with all due respect to what Jared McCain showed and who he is as a player and a prospect, with all due respect to what Quentin Grimes did at the end of the year, and he's probably going to get a pretty healthy contract moving forward, you're not making a 3rd overall pick entirely on, well, do they fit with Jared McCain, right? And entirely on, do they fit with Quentin Grimes, right? And the Maxey part is very important. And I think the best stretch of basketball that Tyrese Maxey has played, efficiency-wise, effective, and just the stylistic pairing, was with James Harden, right? Playing next to James Harden was I know that that's not when he made the All-Star team. I know that it was, the year after Harden left, the year that Harden made the infamous Daryl Morey is a liar comment and they end up trading him, all that. That's when he made an All-Star team and the numbers were the highest. But he was shooting like 43% from 3 with Harden. And you're able to get him a shot diet that I think just makes more sense for him, right? It's off the ball, but you still weaponize him on ball, right? He still gets to take the step back threes and the stuff coming off of handoffs. You're still running him in actions with the Joel Embiid, or, if it's a Dembona, if it's whoever that ends up being healthy enough to play basketball for the Sixers this year. But having a guy who can be a true run the offense guard to play next to Maxey would be great for him. And those would be the two that matter more than does it get the best out of McCain? Does it get the best out of Grimes? Because this is just a different caliber of prospect and player coming out of school than those guys were. And that's not disparaging Jared McCain or Quentin Grimes. It's just the reality of, who Harper is at this point.
Yep. All right. We have a whole lot more slop coming up, but I think before that, a couple of words from some friends.
And guys, just like your favorite team, I don't know if anyone's favorite team in here is the Sixers. I know we like talking about them, but I don't know if they're your favorite team. Just like they need home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to big box stores to try to pick stuff out. You're in endless aisles. You're taking the materials home yourself. You look for an installer. You have to coordinate it all yourself. It's a very tedious process. It can be an expensive process. There's just a whole lot to do. You don't feel like doing. You have a busy life. Those big box stores might have a flooring department, but that person who's helping you with the flooring, yesterday they're stocking light bulbs, and the next day they're in the gardens. They're selling you plants and different things. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring. They'll be with you every step of the way, and they bring expertise because this is what they do. They bring the showroom right to your home, pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. You can see how it looks with your furniture in your house, and you get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered, so there are no surprises. So you can schedule a free in-home estimate today. Some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code PHLY. You heard right, a $350 discount with the code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
And look, guys, we've all been there. Your parlay's one leg away, and then a relief pitcher gives up a walk-off bomb in the ninth. If that sounds familiar, the HOF app is built to fix that. Started by two lifelong sports fans who also happen to be Ivy League grads, HOF makes parlay research smarter, faster, and data-driven. This is not your buddy's group chat full of hot takes. It's a full analytics engine. The HOF app gives you access to advanced stats, historical data, and powerful tools to help you bet smarter. The app is built for the everyday sports fan, so it's easy and intuitive to use. You'll get an idea of your parlay's chances to hit and identify weak legs so you can weed them out before you place them. Whether it's MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, or college sports, the app gives you beautiful charts, clean visuals, and real insight, not hype. They believe anything the books know, you should know too, because parlays don't have to be dumb bets. With HOF, they aren't. With a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 5-star reviews, it's safe to say the HOF app has already helped a lot of people bet smarter. For a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use a code PHLY at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS and Android or visit hofbets.com, enter code PHLY, and you're all set. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers show. Any other thoughts on the Harper rumors, or do you want to move on to the next one?
No, I think that's a solid 20 minutes on Dylan Harper, who will probably end up going at 2. I think it's probably enough for today. But so shout out to Kristen Peak for getting some intel from the prospect himself, because that's not always the easiest this time of year.
Yeah, for sure.
So next up on my list, Derek, would be, what the hell are the New Orleans Pelicans going to do in general with their draft pick? Certainly there's actually an interesting development today with the Pelicans that I will add into this group. So I'm going to run you through a few different Pelicans related or adjacent rumors, and then you can pick from what you want to talk about first. So Kevin O'Connor over at Yahoo, one of his most recent mocks had them drafting Kon Knueppel, but as part of the write-up for that pick at 7, direct quote here: "There are no untouchables in New Orleans. League sources say the Pelicans are gauging the market for everyone on their roster." So that sets the stage right there. We've talked about this on the show, Derek, but Joe Dumars, Troy Weaver, new management, new outlook. What do? This is always a situation where that first draft and first offseason, you're keeping an eye on this team. So that lines up with something that we've talked about quite a bit. Now, Shamit Dua, who has a Substack covering the Pelicans. I need to find the name of it right now so I can give him proper credit. He's also on the In the Know podcast, host with a couple other Pelicans guys that I like. Shamit said on a show this week, quote, "The Pelicans love Ace Bailey." So another piece of intel there that he certainly, to me, in my mind, profiles as a Weaver Dumars type of guy. We can get into that later. So that's another piece right there. One last thing, and this just came up today. I need to find the exact writer of the story. But Joe Dumars actually went on the record today with the Times-Picayune in New Orleans and was unequivocal that Zion is staying in New Orleans and he's part of their plans moving forward. So that's been a source of some contention since the season ended. There was initially the thought that he's definitely getting moved. He represented the Pelicans at the lottery, so that was the first sign, like, hey, we're committed to him. There were some recent really nasty allegations regarding Zion that we will leave for once there's some more substantiated reporting, and we'll see how that ends up in the legal process. Allegedly, they are committed to Zion, according to Joe Dumars. So where do you want to start with all that, Derek?
I mean, I think the two are kind of tied together. Well, the two remaining rumors, right? Because there is
the non-Zion.
Non-Zion.
Okay.
Because there's the everyone available, and then there's them loving the 7th pick, or Ace Bailey, I mean. And they have to, obviously, if they want to get the 3rd pick to get Ace Bailey, they have to attach something to that 7th pick to try to make that worth the Sixers while. The Sixers are not just going to swap spots for him. There has to be something else coming in. I don't have a full breakdown of the Pelicans' future draft pick situation in front of me. I should. I don't. They only have the 7th pick in this draft. I know that. So, I mean, there's two very likely candidates, or at least people you're going to speculate about when talking about that. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy to 3rd. I think both players that I generally have a lot of interest in. 7th is the spot where I start getting a little nervous about trading down. You know, if you expect the draft to go chalk and, you know, you expect Flagg and Harper and Bailey and Edgecombe and then Kon and Trey, that's where I start getting a little nervous that you've traded down too far. You know, I have a lot of interest in Jeremiah Fears. We've talked about that in the past, or I have a lot of confidence, or at least belief in Jeremiah Fears. I don't love his fit here at all, really. And there's, you know, we can get into CMB or Noah or other prospects like that. I think there is considerably more uncertainty with some of those players than there is with the top 6. So 7 is where I start getting nervous. Like I said, I do have a lot of interest in both Trey Murphy and Jones, but it would be interesting to see what the real construct of a potential trade would look like.
So just to throw this in there, because you said you weren't aware of their draft pick situation, the Pelicans are really well set up with picks to move and trades moving forward. So obviously they own the 7 this year. They have a protected 1 through 4 pick from the Pacers next year. They also next year have swap rights with the Bucks, which is a potentially huge trade chip. That I don't think would come into territory with the Sixers unless they're making a foundation shifting trade, right? Like something that would involve Maxey or something like that, but that would be unlikely. They own swap rights with Milwaukee in 27 as well. And then they have their own first round picks from 2028 through 2031, as well as an unprotected 2nd from the Raptors in 2031 and some kind of swap with the Magic in the 2nd round in 2031. So suffice it to say, they have a lot of picks, and the Milwaukee swap rights for next year, that's probably one of the most valuable immediate trade chips anywhere, right? Because with Dame basically out for next season, not confirmed, but we assume is out all next year, and Giannis potentially being moved, that can trump a lot of different things. So more to the point that you're getting at, Derek, I think if you were trying to think up a 3 to 7 drop for the Sixers in this draft, it almost relies on Jeremiah Fears going in that top 6, whether that's at 5
Washington,
to Utah, maybe 6 to Washington, because if he goes there, then that probably pushes somebody like a Knueppel down. And whatever people think of Knueppel, I think he's a much cleaner fit and probably a much more straightforward solution if you're a team that's trying to compete right now than if you're drafting Noah Essengay, if you're drafting Colin Murray-Boyles, Maluach, like whoever it might be. So I agree with you that 7 is kind of dicey if you're just going off the prospect rankings. We've talked about him a lot, though, Derek. I know Herb Jones has been in the conversation much more recently, but Trey Murphy, we talked about a lot last summer before I believe he signed that extension. What do you think it would take, or actually, I'll set that aside. How valuable would Trey Murphy be on this team? And like, what would you be willing to do to make some kind of trade with New Orleans involving 3 to get Trey Murphy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trey's very valuable. Little injury prone, so he fits right in. What was his injury status last year? Like he missed what, like 25 games, 20? A little more.
I believe he played 50 something games, if I remember correctly, and
there was a tear of the rotator cuff, I believe, like a shoulder injury.
I'd have to go back and look. I would also say with New Orleans last year, it's a little dicey to trust who was actually that hurt and who was being sat at the end of the year for lottery positioning, because he wasn't ruled out for the year until March 17th.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was a torn labrum and a partial rotator cuff tear is what the announcement was. So pretty serious shoulder injuries. He has dealt with some health concerns at times, but last year was a breakthrough for him as a scorer, higher usage player last year. Scored 21 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, over a steal a game. Not as good efficiency-wise from 3, but the volume is crazy and does have a history of, pretty good defense and switchability. So a player who would tie a lot of things together.
Yeah, the not as good shooting was 36% from 3 on over 8 attempts per game. And for his career, he's been 38% plus every other season, including a 40% on pretty good volume his second year in the league. He's been a real consistent off-ball shooter. And like you mentioned, last year he started showing a lot more on-ball creation, started creating for others a little bit more. This is a guy who came in and averaged only basically a half assist per game, only in 14 minutes, but still ended up averaging 3.5 last year. I do think the context he was playing in, like, I don't expect him to come here and necessarily be a 20-point per game scorer. He's just not going to have the ball nearly as much. His numbers probably look somewhere between, that 14 to 15 point per game guy that he was earlier in his career and that 21 he averaged last year. We're probably looking at maybe 16, 17 per game on much better efficiency and hopefully a little bit better defense, because I thought his defense, and this happens to pretty much everyone, but when you ask them to be a top creation option, their defense usually takes a little bit of a hit. I thought that was true last year too, but I think he can come in here and at least be a neutral to slightly positive defender because he was earlier on in his career. So yeah, I think he's a real good fit. I would have a lot of interest. He's tied down long term to a below market contract. It was basically like, I think, a 4-year, $100 million extension, maybe a little bit more than that. He's making 25 to 30 million per year. The problem is that is a real tough salary to match for the Sixers. Like, you have to pretty much hope that all of your players with player options opt in and you can package them together. And you were going to have to, it would have to be like a 4-for-1 trade unless you get a team to be looped in with that as well. But certainly, like, I would want another pick. It would be real tough for me not to have a pick in this draft. And maybe that's a sticking point, because I do think, like, when you're talking about Herb Jones or Trey Murphy, Herb's just a better, more realized player with more long-term intrigue. So them giving up the 7th pick along with Herb to get up to 3, they would have to really love Ace Bailey. But yeah, I would certainly be interested in that.
Yeah. So my guess is, just playing off of the Bailey interest, you could probably get Herb Jones in 7 if you really held up Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver and said, you guys love Ace, come up and get him. We'll slide down. We'll take a good role player who, I believe Herb's contract is either going to be expiring or it's up after 2 years. I'd have to double check on that. He's getting
Did I say
closer
Herb
to
or that whole time I was talking about Trey Murphy? I don't know if I said Herb Jones.
I don't think you did. I'm just saying,
Okay.
I think
I
you
just want
could
to make sure because I
slide.
know I've made that mistake before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you could probably slide 3 to 7 and pick up Herb Jones.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
it's fairly easy to make the salary work. I think because of his contract status, I don't think you'll have to go crazy negotiating with the Pelicans, who are in the midst of whatever the hell they're doing down there. Trey Murphy is just a much different value proposition, right? Like he is a prototypical modern NBA type of guy. Shoots the ball, can defend, he's super big, he's athletic. Just like there's, other than the health stuff, there are no real major flaws to his game. So I think you probably outright lose your lottery pick if you're trading for Trey Murphy because of what the different combinations of contracts and whatnot would look like. I don't think I'm willing to do that, right? Like I love Trey Murphy. I love him as a player, but I just think that it's such a big risk to take to lose the guy who would be on a controllable rookie scale deal for the next 4 years and say, we're sacrificing that along with, whatever contracts to make it work, or if it's Paul George and however that ends up playing out. It's just really tough for me to see a deal that I love that sends out 3 and you get no immediate first back. Now, that being said, the case for trying to trade for Trey Murphy is he's still young enough that regardless of what happens this year and in the next couple of years ahead, and he's locked in for 4 years, I believe, at 25 million, then 27 million, like escalating over that time. If you completely, or not completely, if you strip it down a little bit and you trade Joel Embiid, you trade Paul George, and you're just left with the young guys, he can still fit and grow and ascend with Maxey and with McCain and with whoever else they can get in here as young and rising players. So it is a guy I would take a long, hard look at. I would try to do whatever I could to get him. I just think I'd probably have a stopping point, and that stopping point would be losing a lottery pick this year.
Yeah. No, I like Trey a lot. I like his long-term fit for sure. All right. I think we have a few more rumors to get to, but once again, another quick break from some of our friends. All right.
Derek,
first
I'm not going to lie. My notes are not in front of me, so I'm glad you're first up on the list right now.
I am first up on the list, and we want to tell you about Mando. If you're heading out on a first date, this is a non-negotiable. Put on your deodorant. Really, it should be non-negotiable for every day, but certainly for a first date. It's a non-negotiable for just getting out of bed. Be respectful to those around you, especially with summer just around the corner. One nice thing about Mando is it's a whole body deodorant. It's safe to use anywhere on the body, from armpits to thigh folds to belly buttons to, we'll just say, everywhere on the body. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. You can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, cloverwoods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. Mando is clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. Did you know that 12 hours after the average man's grundle odor level was a 5 out of 10, with Mando, the average grundle odor level was a 0 out of 10. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code PHLY at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
And guys, you already know what time it is. It's time to spring into savings at Ashley, where the low prices are blooming. Save up to 50% off of living room, bedroom, and dining room furniture and have it all delivered for free. And you get long-term, no-interest financing. You can save on top brand mattresses, get free delivery setup and removal. Look at some outdoor stuff, guys. The weather's getting much warmer. I know Derek is happy about that because I see this man put shorts on the second it goes above a certain temperature threshold, showing up to the office. You want to be sitting out on your back deck, on your patio, or wherever it might be. Maybe you got a little veranda. Maybe you're a fancy boy. I have no idea. Whatever it is, Ashley has the furniture for you. Spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing comes with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
All right, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers show, where we are talking rumors. What do you got next for us, Kyle?
I mean, are we done with the Pelican stuff? I
think just to recap, because the chat was telling me that I screwed up my names earlier. Love Tre Jones. Think he's
Tre Jones.
Oh, Jesus.
I screwed up my names and then I said Tre Jones.
Love Trey Murphy. Think he's too good to get the 7th pick back in a trade, and that makes me concerned giving up the 3rd pick. But the long-term contract, which is again 4 years at about 25 to 30 per, and his great consistent shooting, huge fan, would be a great fit. Herb Jones, only 2 years left at like 13 to 14 per. Honestly, it sounds like a great contract. It is a great contract. He is a heck of a defender. He missed a lot of games this past year, and I'm a little worried. Yep. You're only going to get him for 2 years, and that contract's going to be much more significant. So that, I think, obviously, he has less trade value. I have a little bit less interest. That one I do think can get the 7th pick in the draft back with, but I also, 7th pick is where I start getting nervous. So that's just kind of like recapping.
Yeah.
So it points out, what about Herb Murphy? I don't know. He sounds great too. I don't know why, but I always like twist those names. It screws me up.
Listen, it happens. What did Devon had a combination of players the other day, right? I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it like,
I think it's kind of done it now, so it's like in my head, like, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, and then obviously you screw it up.
It happens. Okay, so another one from Kristen Peak over at Hoops HQ was that Maluach, potential target for the Spurs, which that was very interesting. Now, prefaced it by saying not at 2.
Yeah.
Not at 2, right? Like that would be, you want to talk about, do you remember what draft was it? Which draft was the Anthony Bennett draft?
Yeah.
Was that 2013?
That was that was a Nerlens Noel one. What? Yeah. That was one everyone thought Nerlens was going number 1.
I'll never forget. That was when Bill Simmons was part of their NBA draft coverage. Anthony Bennett gets drafted by Cleveland, and he just goes, "Whoa!" and like screams into the microphone. And that was the level of shock. You would get a similar level of shock, I think, if Maluach ends up going too. So yeah, Kristen,
that is, I think honestly, I think this is like the strength of Bill Simmons' NBA coverage. His draft coverage is usually really entertaining, and oddly, he's correct. I think more often than people give him credit for.
He's done a pretty. I believe he was a Durant over Odin guy back when that was not a consensus or popular take. So I give him credit for that one, certainly, even though that was a long time ago. So I think she framed it more as potentially the Spurs could move up from 14. I don't know what that would entail, like what they're willing to move, or maybe who's in the mix there. You might look at a team like, I don't know, Toronto. Toronto's in a weird spot. They're at the 9th pick. And I don't know that there's an obvious guy that's like a plug and play. Oh yeah, he's going to really fit in with what they're building there, in part because I don't know what they are building there in Toronto. It's just, they're getting guys that are name players and pretty good, but I don't know that they have been attached to Giannis at points this week, that there apparently is some mutual interest between the Raptors and Giannis, although I think a lot of that is Masai Ujiri is definitely interested, and I don't know how much Giannis is. We'll ultimately see what happens there. So that was a big one that came up. I don't know if we can tie that to the Sixers. In terms of the Sixers stuff, we have started to hear a lot more in the public sphere, hey, maybe Tre Johnson at 3. Like his name has finally started to flash. I believe Rafael Barlow at NBA Big Board floated that possibility. If you're just talking about, Seth Greenberg was on our show from ESPN yesterday, and he said he would
if you haven't watched it. Yep.
He said he would take Tre Johnson at 3, that's his guy for the shot making potential, compared him to a Ray Allen type of player and shooter. Didn't worry so much about the fit with the current roster guys. And I think, frankly, if we were to say, how do we wrap all this up in the Sixers package? It's another thing we've said a lot, Derek, which is nobody really seems to have a feel for what the Sixers are going to do. That they have been tied to just about every possibility that is out there. Trade for a star, trade down, make the pick somebody you're not expecting, whatever it is. And so I'll say again, one of the things this front office has done really well as it relates to the draft is hiding their intent, because there is no strong intel out there on exactly what it is they're going to do.
Yeah, and look, by the time the draft gets here, they will have been rumored to be interested in pretty much everyone, because when teams
not you and
good,
I, but everybody else.
You never know. You never know. There's tape of us playing Papa Shot. It's not bad tape. No, but like, because when teams don't really make obvious what their intentions are, agents can come in and take that void and use that to their advantage. And, everyone is going to be rumored to the Sixers because it behooves a lot of agents and players to think that they are in play at 3, which again doesn't mean that they're not. It just means that it's the Sixers the uncertainty with the Sixers pick can be used to the advantages of others. And it's going to be very, I won't say annoying, but it's going to be, I feel like, especially as we get closer to the draft, there's just going to be a lot of slop. And we're going to have another couple of these shows, and some of it will be true and some of it will be not. But there is this feels like anything's in play. Like, I feel like a trade down is in play. I hope a trade out is not in play. Trade up, I mean, we just spent 20 plus minutes talking about Dylan Harper. Who knows what they do at 2. And then when you start talking about even if they just stay at 3, feels like there's 3 or 4 players that could honestly go. So yeah, I think the Sixers do a good job at this time of year. I think it's right for them to do a good job at this time of year in terms of keeping things quiet. I also think it's, it creates a lot of chaos.
One other one I want to throw out there that I've seen pop up a few different places. It does seem like Kon Knueppel is firmly in the mix for top 5. And I know that anytime we bring up Kon Knueppel, because we're both a little lower on Ace than maybe the public is, it turns into, y'all would draft Kon Knueppel at 3? And it's like, no, actually, no.
Explicitly said, I am not drafting Kon Knueppel at 3.
Yeah, like firmly no. Like, I'd never said that. But I do think, seen it a few different places now, and there are just, every time his name comes up, I think with Kon, the thing is, I don't think there are any NBA teams that are specifically low on him. And that helps in these conversations, right? There's nobody, he's not like Ace, where Ace, there will be people, and I think maybe the Pelicans are an example. Ace is a guy that maybe a team has 2 on the board, right? There are going to be some evaluators who say, and as I said earlier, with Troy Weaver and Dumars, they are guys that like toolsy, long, athletic guys, right? Like if you go back to Dumars' time in Detroit, Tayshaun Prince, a good example. Weaver is taking a guy like Asar Thompson. And Weaver likes bigs a lot. He drafted, signed a lot of centers and a lot of big guys in the front court trying to play maybe a little too much bully ball, or trying to reimagine it. Maybe that was borne out over time, was a little smarter than it looked at the time. But so they do like toolsy players, right? And so if they're just super high on Ace, that's one thing. But then there are teams on the other end. I think Kon is just he's probably top 6 or 7 on almost any team's board because of the safety that you view him with. And I think as you get closer, there are teams looking at some of these guys like, are we really going to take Jeremiah Fears and hope that he's on the protein shake diet for the next 4 straight years and believe in him? Are we going to draft Derek Queen without a defensive position to his name? And you just whittle it down. And Knueppel ends up emerging for some of these teams as he may not be a future superstar, but we believe in him a lot, and he can play with just about any future roster you can put together.
Cannot believe you just said that you would take Kon Knueppel over Ace Bailey. All right, before we get to our last couple of super chats, we want to make sure to remind you about the PHLY golf outing, the 2nd annual golf tournament held at Jaws Valley Brook Country Club, presented by Xfinity on June 14th from 2 p.m. to 7. Jeez, what is wrong with me? From 2 p.m. to 7
Not like you
p.m.
talk professionally.
In that, you get a limited edition PHLY golf gifts, along with some raffle prizes and some included post-golf beverages and food, which Kyle and I will also be doing pre-golf and during golf. You can join Rich Hoffman, Fran Duffy, Jamie Lynch, Tyler Zulli, and his dad, who will all be there golfing. Like I mentioned, Kyle and I will spend some time hydrating at the Country Club because we know our limitations. Once again, that is from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Valley Brook Country Club, and head on over to allphly.com/events to check it out.
And guys, I have to also tell you about the NBA Finals ball knower bonus we got going on. Do you think you know ball? We've got a ball knower bonus we got to tell you about. For each game of the NBA Finals, all you have to do is pick the winner of the game, and you can win a gift card to the PHLY merch store if you make a correct pick. Here's how it works. You click the link in the description below, make your pick, place an order in the AllCity merch store. That's a $25 minimum. And if you pick correctly, you get a gift card to the merch store for the same amount as your original order. One important thing, you must click the link that's in the chat or in the show notes to qualify for the gift card. So listen, it's very simple. You pick the Pacers or you pick the Thunder. That's all you have to do. That's the only ball you have to know is, will this team win tonight? Make your pick, place an order. You pick correctly, you're getting a gift card from us for the same amount as your order. That's the ball knower bonus from PHLY.
All right, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers show once again. All right, a couple more super chats, unless you have any other slop that you want to get out there.
No, I think those are the main ones. I would just say I think there is probably another team out there who's looking at a potential trade up to 3 for Ace. I don't know who it is, though. I think the Pelicans, to me, are the obvious team right now based on history and sort of where they're at in their rebuild. I don't know that there's a team in the lottery otherwise that I'm like, yeah, for sure. They want to get to 3 and are willing to, move a whole lot to get there. But a lot of time to figure that out. You know what's weird? And I brought this up to you guys the other day. I feel like we've heard very little about the Wizards, right? Like as we're talking about these teams that were hurt by the lottery and who jumped up, the Wizards at 6 are just in a really tough spot. They still don't have their foundational rebuild player. I don't know that you're going to get that guy at 6. They could be a trade-up team, right? Maybe they love Ace Bailey. Maybe they love one of these other guys. But we've heard very little tying them to anybody or anything. So I'm casting a bit of a side eye at the Wizards right now to see what they do on draft night.
Yeah. No, that's part of the reason why I've mentioned fears to them at 6, just because, I mean, that's a home run swing. And despite the fact that they have some guards, I think they desperately need a home run swing because right now, not a whole lot on that roster is really anything that's going to set the course of that franchise. All right. I think it's time to transition over to the Brian Pumper portion of the program, part of our daily life. Ace is the place. You don't lose 58 games and pick a role player at 3, high upside, no matter what, according to Brian Pumper. Here is maybe our biggest disconnect. I don't think Ace has the upside you think he does. And the version of Ace that I'm really interested in, and the reason that he still remains in the top of my big board, top 5 or 6 or so, is because I think there's a really good role-playing version of Ace Bailey in there. The off-ball shooting, catch and shoot, movement shooter who grows to know his role and can be an elite defensive player. Now, there's a lot of work that needs to happen for him to become an elite defensive player. His awareness is not there yet. And honestly, he's not he's not an elite, mobility-wise, sliding his feet on the perimeter, but he has enough tools defensively. I think he can be a plus defender at the very least and a heck of an off-ball shooter. It is the on-ball equity that I question in a big way. And I think that's the real disconnect. I don't, that high upside player, I have serious doubts on.
Yeah, I'm not going to hammer Ace because I'm just sick of dealing with these wackos who come in and act like me having him 4th on a big board is like an insane proposition. Yes. I'm tired of it. Moving on. Riaz says, is Tre Johnson legit in play at 3? It feels like Morey could consider him with his shooting skills and not caring how many guards we have at all.
Yes.
I think absolutely.
Yeah, I think there are 3 people I think are very legitimately in play at 3. and I think Trey is one of them.
Yeah. I would say Trey, VJ, Ace are the three guys that I would tie to them. And so to me, I think it's very hard to say, if you're an all-in on Ace person, it's very hard to be all-in on Ace and then be like, there's just no reason they should take Tre Johnson, right? Because like the ceiling case is based on basically the same thing, right? It's the shot making. It's the ability to hit shots from off angles, off the dribble, over length, over doubles, like whatever it is. Like that's the whole thing, right? Now, Ace, I think you feel more confident in as a long-term defender. One, because he falls in he was productive but inconsistent category, right? Like that's where I would place Ace. He was not a perfect defender, but by and large is a kid who I think cares about defense and cared about it enough in a situation that was certainly not ideal, as we've talked about many times, that he flashed quite a bit. So Trey did not. Trey did not flash. There were no extended stretches of play where Tre Johnson defensively was a consistent playmaker. He was an apathetic rebounder. He was not a second effort player, and he could be a bit of a space cadet off the ball. Like those are all problems individually that are a lot worse when you combine them into one package, right? So that being said, if all you care about is, star upside, star ceiling, the stats, the production, the skill level, all the things you hear about his background, all point to, Trey has some serious star equity to consider. And we know Daryl Morey loves stars. We know he doesn't necessarily care about fit as much as the overall talent. So Trey's got to be in that mix. I firmly believe that.
Yep, 100%. All right, Bernard McCoy. To those Maxey haters, don't care if it's Brunson, Dame, or Kyrie, no elite 6'2" lead guard will ever win a chip unless the team is built a certain way.
It sort of sounds like he's hating on him. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm honestly like there was a tonal shift like 2 or 3 times over the course of that message, so I'm not sure which way we're supposed to react. Look, there are certainly limitations to a 6'2" guy being your primary initiator. Those limitations I think were less of a concern when he was playing off of Joel Embiid. As we struggle to project a future with Joel Embiid, or at least a reliable future with Joel Embiid, I think a lot of those concerns are fair. That's not really like, it feels like worrying about contention right now is a high level problem that it's not top of mind for me right now. And if that happens, we're worried about Tyrese Maxey being the limiting factor in a conference finals, and a lot of things have gone wrong with this, or gone right with this team. And it also means that Joel Embiid is back, so he's once again playing off of him. But yeah, look, there are concerns for sure. I would say limiting your scope only to teams that win a title is tough to do. I think that there's some survivorship bias, and I think it's easy to read too much into that, but it's a fair concern.
Yeah, I would also add, as we say many times on the show, this whole offseason is going to become, how do you build the next Pacers team and how do you build the next Thunder? When you don't, you have to build your own best team. It's just the same as you weren't building the Boston Celtics, you weren't building the Denver Nuggets, you weren't building the Golden State Warriors. Like, teams vary in what they can do, who they're matchup proof against, who they like, and all of it is, to Derek's point about survivorship bias, all of this is based on if a different team wins Clippers Nuggets round 1, I don't know that the Thunder beat the Clippers in a series. The Clippers are probably better stylistic matchup against them, and there are a lot of and if Steph Curry doesn't get hurt, I don't know if Minnesota advances out of the second round, and then we see what happens in the conference finals with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and whatnot. It's just build your best team you can and figure out the rest later.
Listen on any of the fast channels. We're about to head on over to overtime, so go to allphly.com so you can listen to the rest of the show. All right, one more here from the man himself.
Be pumped.
What does Valdez? So people who don't know, VJ is short for Valdez Edgecombe Jr. So when he says Valdez, he's talking about VJ Edgecombe. What does he do that his precious, and I'm glad that he at least admits that it's his precious Ace Bailey, can't do on a basketball floor? That's my favorite part. Defend his rationale is Ace is no Seth Curry. As if there's anything between being an elite perimeter defender and Seth Curry. So as long as you clear the Seth Curry bar, then any kind of advantage VJ has in defense doesn't matter. Dunk, newsflash, Ace can dunk a basketball. Great. Because that's the only thing about athleticism that Brian Pumper cares about.
So I'm going to drop some knowledge on you, Pump. Do you know what VJ's nickname is? Money. You're going to bet against a kid whose nickname is Money? I don't think so. Sorry, the facts don't care about your feelings. I would say this. If you're actually asking what VJ is better at, I would say generating double the amount of steals and triple the amount of assists is pretty meaningful, especially when you consider that the assist number is on a team where he's not dominating the ball, right? Like he's having to share responsibility. Now you could flip it the other way and say, well, he's got better teammates, so they're going to make more shots. And like, there's certainly truth to that, but he just is a better passing player. And it's not, again, I will say for the 1,000th time on this show, it is not so much that either Derek or I view VJ as this like slam dunk, half the draft prospect at number 3. It's when you go through the process of elimination and say, what can I live with? And what am I most concerned with? If you take VJ at 3, you feel so good about the two-way potential and his work ethic and his, drive to get the most out of what he has and the commitment that he has shown on both ends up to this point, do you say, I'm okay with that outcome, right? That doesn't mean that he has a higher ceiling than Ace or Trey or some of these, or like you could throw Maluach in there, right? Like if Maluach hits his absolute ceiling, you're talking about one of the biggest players in the league who might be able to shoot threes, right? So like this conversation has gotten shrunken into Ace is the star guy. If you look at the absolute peak of the mountain outcome for all these guys, he does not have a higher outcome than Maluach. And so I would like to see some of those same people say, well, you got to take the guy who's got a chance at being a star, because you can't teach 7'1" with a 1 billion foot wingspan, right? So it's not that either of us think VJ is a slam dunk. And in fact, we have said that probably 36 times a piece on this show up to this point, and we'll say it 36 times more in the month ahead before the draft. It's about confidence in hitting the highest outcome. That's all it is.
There are people who will compare VJ to Victor Oladipo, Donovan Mitchell, to all kinds of
Anthony Edwards I've seen, Dwayne Wade I've seen.
You have heard the 3 people on this show do that precisely 0 times. Never. We are not going to tell you VJ is going to be an all NBA guard. That's never been our stance. Even on a high-end outcome, I don't think that is a likely outcome. Just like I don't think Ace Bailey has the kind of star equity some people believe that he does. There are differences. If you're just going to say, well, since Ace is no Seth Curry, then the defensive upgrade doesn't matter. We just fundamentally disagree about almost everything about basketball. Like there is such a wide gap that you are leaving to be able to fill that I'm sorry, we're not going to see eye to eye, but keep on dropping that money.
Yeah. And I'll say this. We both believe in Ace as a long-term shooter, right? Like the catch and shoot stuff is good. I don't worry about the free throws with Ace, because in high school, I think he was in probably the mid to high 80s, if not like 90%. Like I completely write that off. I think he'll be a good shooter, but also like, I don't know if I were to reverse the argument being made by Pumper here. If Ace is the supreme shot maker, why did he shoot 0.5% better than VJ? Right? Like,
well, if 35% on dribble twos. He shot 42% on layups at the rim. VJ got to the rim on layups twice as often in the half court as Ace Bailey does. So outside of make contested shots, using your logic, Pumper, tell us what Ace does at such a high level.
Yeah. So the way I always discuss these guys is you have to just make the same argument for every single guy. It cannot be, I apply one set of standards to this player and one set to another. And it's why, frankly, I think what needs to be discussed with both guys is I don't know that I believe in either one of their handles, right? Like I believe less in Ace's handle, in part because it's the skill part of it, in part because of the strength and all that. But like VJ does not have a very good left hand. So like as a guard, the inability to consistently get to your left and finish on your left is a really important skill. And while I think he's mostly good otherwise, his pickup point on a lot of his drives is so far out because he trusts the athleticism. And there are just a lot of times he gets himself in trouble. That's reflected in, you brought up Ace's rim finishing numbers. VJ's rim finishing numbers in the half court were not good. He got there a lot more, but he only finished, I think, 44% of his half court layups. Again, better than Ace, but it's not demonstratively better. And so if you were to say, well, this kid's a nuclear athlete, but why isn't he able to leverage it? It's a fair question. A lot of the projection is based on, you have to believe that NBA spacing is really going to help him turn some of these shots that are, him absorbing a lot of contact and taken off from far out, turning into easier shots with spacing around him. I don't know that that's going to happen. It's why I've said pretty consistently that he might just be a role player. That's what it is. But so could Ace. So could many of these guys. There is not, to me, a very clear, this guy is a star, other than Flag and to a lesser extent, Dylan Harper.
Yep. I'm kind of hoping that I sit down one weekend and watch like every Texas game and I just fall in love with Trey.
With Trey?
I just want someone to completely believe in. That's my goal over these next couple of weeks.
He does kind of feel like the compromise candidate, right? Like he's not he's not VJ, so he's not just the defense and intangibles and whatever guy that represents a certain part of the draft sphere. He's in the bucket crew and he's got good tools and you can see a little bit of the star equity and all that. But boy, the rebounding and the defense are just tragic for a player who's 6'5" with a 6'10", 6'11" wingspan, whatever it was.
Yep. All right. Anything else you want to get to that world famous roll call?
I kind of want to say something about the insane clip about Karl Anthony Towns that surfaced today, but I also don't want to give said person more attention for it because they already got more attention than they deserved. I would just say, if you are talking about another player's hips and making weird comments like that, maybe leave the basketball analysis to other people, but I don't know. What do I know? I don't even know if Derek knows what I'm talking about.
I was too offline today. I don't even know what you're talking about. Which I feel fantastic for, by the way. Great life choice.
Well, obviously, the irony will be dripping here, but not everybody should be in front of a microphone talking about basketball. Let's put it that way. Anyway, it is time for a roll call around here. Thank you for everybody, as always, checking in, hanging out, being with us, having some fun, sending some super chats. Maybe Devon will even work a second day this week. So maybe
even 2 in a row. Whoa.
Maybe you'll get to see our friend. I was informed. We were informed today. We do have we'll call them an Ace Bailey adjacent guest. We also have a VJ Edgecombe adjacent guest. I believe both of those will be coming next week. The order of which I am not sure of, but I just want everybody to know we are not in control of when they come. So if a VJ guest is first, it's just because when they could get booked. But we have some people who are coming on who will be able to share some insight. So just wanted to tease that for the people who are here at the end of the show today. Got some more fun guests upcoming. Obviously, once again, thanks to Seth Greenberg yesterday, who we had a lot of fun with. Thank you to Money Mar. Thank you to Hedva. Thank you to Will. Thank you to, here's a new one, Spherical Penguin, for checking in. It's definitely a first for me on the show, Spherical Penguin. Mellow 3 Point, Jay the Jungle, X-Man, Riaz, who had a super chat today, Eugene Ross, Jesse Bond, Brian Knight, Bootzilla, SB Cole, Music Lover 31, Tom Jackson, Duck Holiday, PSU Iverson, Gary Fagan, Shiz Sosa. Who else in here? The letter N, Lamar Williams. What's up to Lamar? Who we got? DC Marley hanging around. B Pump, obviously, the man of the million ace super chats.
Appreciate the money pump.
We thank you for helping to keep the lights on here at PHLY, although today we're in the home studio, we'll call it, which is just our offices. You better love somebody. Jeff is in the building with us today. Who else is in here? I got to shout out Fidel Castro of the strip club, of course.
Of course.
We got Paul. We got my girl Winona. We got Jess with the Purple Heart. Who else? That's probably Bernard McCoy had a super chat today. Thank you to Bernard. Always good to see you around. That's probably good enough for today, right? We got a lot of people who lurk too. Shout out to our lurkers. Shout out to the non-commenters who are just here for the love of the game and the love of basketball. Shout out also to the people in the next day comments who get really mad at Derek and I whenever Ace
really
Bailey
mad
comes up.
And they're not going to
as if we're like actively rooting against him, which is insane. We'd say all the time, I want every one of these kids to succeed.
Also, shout out to Devon. I hope that interview in New York went well, buddy.
What? Uh-oh.
Nick's interview was a joke.
I know. And shout out to Mom's grandchildren, who's always hanging around somewhere. What's up to Mom? Hanging around out there, even if Devon is not with us today, damn it. Everybody who's here, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. Oh, Igavini, I think I missed. What's up to Gavin? What's up to Will? So hit that subscribe button.
In the middle of the show a couple times, though, so he definitely got a shout out. It just wasn't.
Shout out to Theo. I see coming in here at the end. What's up to Theo? What's up to everybody, obviously. Everyone who's here, please hit the thumbs up button to help us out in the algorithm, obviously, but also to say thank you to our president of basketball operations, super producer Bree, holding it down on the remote show, in studio, wherever we are. Bree holds us down. Thank you to Bree. Thank you to all of you. We will be back tomorrow, presumably with a full crew, but you never know. We'll see. 3 o'clock, Monday through Friday, as always. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
We all silly like the